friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video, if you guys couldn't tell by the title, is me discussing the Stardew Valley love interest as books. And because I am still in the process of getting these shelves reorganized, when will that happen? Who knows? I'm just going to throw up pictures of the books here on the screen because I really don't want to have to dig for at least a good 30 minutes trying to find some of these books. And some of these books I don't even own anymore. So let's just kind of hop into it. There's 12 love interests, so 12 books, and we got some discussions and all that fun stuff. Alright, so I'm going to start off with the in alphabetical order so I can go, A, B, C, D, E. But the first one on the list was actually the first boy I romanced in my joint Stardew Valley playthrough with my boyfriend and his sisters, and that is Alex. He is a classic, very stupid jock, very not so emotionally aware. He says he wants to read, but doesn't actually end up reading. And he has some daddy issues deep-seated in there. Now, I actually enjoyed trying to romance him. There were definitely some instances where I was like, I'm second-guessing all of my decisions up until this point. Especially where he's like, oh yeah, you'll never become a so-and-so because you're a girl. And then to boot, the random little tidbits where you run into him and he goes, hey, if you run into Haley, can you tell her I said hi? Or when he's like, oh, if you see Haley, tell her I don't have time for her today. So there were definitely some instances where I was like, do I want this romance? I don't know. Leaning toward a no at the moment. But the book I decided to go with is actually the Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams. This I feel like fits Alex perfectly. He's just much like Gavin, Alex is very much very focused on his sports. Doesn't have a lot of emotional intelligence up in there. And also has a list of issues that both Gavin and his wife also share, which is some daddy issues. We got have some past trauma in there, so it just works out. Now, the Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams is an adult contemporary romance following Gavin as he is on the cusp of a divorce with his wife. And the reason for that is because he recently found out that he can make his wife orgasm when they have sex, among other reasons. So because his best friends, his other fellow major league and other sports peoples are oh, this is kind of a depressing situation, they bring him into the fold of their bromance book club where they read romance books in order to become a better man, a better lover, a better ally to their loved ones and their partners in their life. I think it just fits Alex perfectly because like I said, there's not a lot of emotional intelligence going on in there. There's some past traumas that keep Alex definitely from being able to move forward and become a better person. And it's also sports related, and I think Alex, 90% of his voice lines are him talking about sports or how he's going to become the best sports person out there. And you just kind of sit there and you go, okay, then why aren't you auditioning for some big, super huge role, teams right now? Okay. The next one is a fan favorite, and that is Abigail, the town's very cute little goth girlfriend that wants her own independence from her family, is a bit of a nerd, and definitely is a bit more misunderstood when it comes to her parents and how she wants. There's a lot of rumors saying that she might just be the wizard's daughter, which doesn't, it makes sense but doesn't make sense. And then it's just a lot of things very not she doesn't fit in with Stardew Valley. She's very much outside of the mold. She has a thing for Sebastian that everyone knows about, and will she ever ask him out? Who knows? But if you're a Sebastian person, you're probably very, very annoyed. I ended up choosing Gods of Jade and Shadow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I just think that in case, I think Abigail's the kind of girl who wants a big adventure. While Cassiopeia isn't misunderstood by her family, she's actually kind of abused. She does end up going on this huge adventure with the god of death in the Mexican culture. So I think that's kind of what Abigail's looking for, a big magical adventure that'll take her out of Stardew Valley, that'll give her some independence and also give her some footing on the road and prove to her parents that, she is capable of all of these things and more. Hence why I chose Gods of Jade and Shadow. Now, Gods of Jade and Shadow is a historical fantasy following young Cassiopeia as she lives in 1920s Mexico and is heavily abused by her grandparents. That is until one day she opens a box that releases the god of death. Now, the two of them form a pact in order for the god of death to slowly rebuild himself after being cut apart and separated all over the land. They now traverse through 1920s Mexico trying to put him back together before he completely sucks out the life from Cassiopeia. That's all I have to say. But I think it also fits Abigail, as I said, because Abigail's pushing for independence. She's looking for a way to find her footing, to be on a huge grand adventure. She plays these video games that like seem to also mimic these like huge grand adventures that she desperately wants to go on. And I think that this fits Cassiopeia as well, because she does end up going on this grand adventure and finding her own independence from this very oppressive force in her life, and she gets to become her own person. The next one is actually my own mirror, and the one I ended up going with my own personal playthrough, and that is Elliot, the lovely little hermit, one could say, from the beach. He moves there to become a writer, avoid the city life and become this big fat writer, and he chooses a little cabin, little nook by the beach because he thinks the waves are very refreshing and very inspirational, but he's also kind of lonely and a little pretentious. So I ended up choosing The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. I think these two books parallel each other pretty well, not only with Elliot's pretentiousness, because Olivia Blake's writing for this book in itself is very pretentious as well, but I also think it fits because Elliot also seems to be a very lonely person with a lot of big thoughts running in his head. And I think if he had written a book that he didn't need to ask you like inspiration for, I feel like he'd write something like dark academic, just judging by how he dresses and how he speaks and how he holds himself. I think he'd write something like dark academia, something definitely with fantastical vibes, because my man, you don't move to a random farm village in the middle of nowhere on a beach if you're not thinking of like some beautiful, majestical, fantastical, romantical things. Now, Atlas Six by Olivia Blake is the first part in, I think, a trilogy, I want to say, and it's a new adult dark academia fantasy following a group of, I think, 5 or 6 talented magicians or witches who are asked to join a competition in order to become part of the Alexandrian community, which is like a secret society that is basically like Tower of Babel kind of stuff. Like all of the knowledge that you could think of magical wise is within this little secret society. Now, in order for them to join, they have to kick one person out. And it's just an entire competition of like trying to show off like who's stronger, who's X, Y, and Z, and who's more deserving of this role. I think it fits because, like I said, if Elliot writes a book that isn't, that you didn't like ask him to write because he didn't ask your like ideas for, I think this is a book that he would write. It's pretentious. I love this book. It's a little pretentious. It's dark academia, which I think dives into the fact that Elliot is a very knowledgeable person, so he can show off a little bit in his writing, as well as Elliot is a bit pretentious in fact. And to boot, it also is like very like almost lost in the clouds with like it's fantasy. Things aren't gonna be happening. That's gonna like things are gonna be different from what you like you can romanticize it a little bit more, and it's a little bit more like how Olivia Blake writes is also very romantic. I think very descriptive and very flowery. I think that's why I think it'll fit Elliot's personality very well. So I think these two would go very well together. So yes. It also doesn't help that Olivia Blake is a Filipino author, and I'm a Filipino who romance Elliot, so somehow magically it all just... The next bachelorette is Emily, who is Haley's older sister. Now, I haven't like talked a ton about like to Haley in my playthroughs at all. Like, from my personal perspective, she's not very intriguing to me. But maybe it's just to mirror myself. But from what I've heard from analysis, Emily is a very like, she's more down to earth than Haley is, a little less spoiled, a little more like able to like get her out of her very spoiled head and like get to the nitty-gritty of things. She is very much a perfectionist, and I think she's also very spiritual and kind of longs to almost be a perfect being, is what I've read from other people's analyzing her. There's a line with her where like a parrot breaks its wing, and she goes like, oh, you're just like me. So I think much like Abigail, she is kind of looking for more. She's looking for a little bit more than Stardew Valley, a little bit more than the life she's currently living, but she's making do with what she has. Now, what I decided to go off of was the fact that Emily seems to be a bit of a perfectionist from what I've seen from people analyzing her. She seems to want to be a good role model for Haley, and she seems to like almost like push herself is kind of the vibe that I'm getting. So I decided to go with You Asked for Perfect by Laura Silverman. Now I think this both works out because I think the main character Ariel in this book also pushes himself to be a little past his breaking point to be this concept of perfect, to fit in what his parents and what his family is expecting of him, which I think Emily does. Now, you asked for Perfect is a YA contemporary following a young boy going through his senior year of high school. He is like spreading himself a little too thin. A little way too thin for his family and friends to find it to be comfortable. But he thinks it's all okay. That is until he fails, I think it's like an algebra or a calculus. It's like an upper level science or math class that I did not take. And he asks for help from someone who he hasn't been the biggest fan of throughout his entire high school career. And they end up striking up a relationship all while he's trying to struggle to balance these very separate parts of himself and bring them all together to make the perfect. I think these two books like parallel each other pretty nicely, just because it seems like Emily wants everything. Almost wants herself to be everything: a good sister, a good seamstress, good employee, good person. And almost like she seems like, when I look at her, she just seems so overworked. So I think it fits, as well as with Ariel's like very much like overworked personality, constantly pushing himself to be better, constantly pushing himself to get the good grades, to get to be in all the extracurriculars and all that stuff that doesn't seem to always work out for him. So I think these two pair a little nicely. I read a lot of analyses for these characters, so I am tired. The next eligible bachelor is Harvey, and Harvey also strikes me as very, very overworked. From what I've read from analyses, he seems to he like pushes himself to be the best in the things that he's currently in. That's the medical field. He's Stardew Valley's only doctor, and he pushes himself to be the best doctor in the town, always taking care of people, always putting people ahead of himself. But I guess there are some current voice lines or like dialogue lines where he discusses wanting to be a pilot and all of these things. So I just think Harvey in and of itself is a very overworked person who chose almost like the easy way out of what his life could be. Not saying that medical school is easy, but chose like the more traditional path of like a career because it allowed for some job security. Like, pilots, things switch up all the time. You guys have been seeing that with COVID, with like the downfall of Southwest. So I just think it's kind of the vibe that he gets me. So because he couldn't be the thing that he desperately wanted to be, he overcompensates and becomes really, really like perfect at what he does, almost to the point where he's like stuck daydreaming about what could have been. So I ended up choosing Again But Better by Kristen Riccio. I think Harvey and the main character both have very similar personalities. Both of them yearn for a different career path than they already have, and both are in the medical field. Now, Again But Better by Kristen Riccio is a YA, I guess, magical realism kind of situation following a young girl who decides to study abroad in London. She goes against her parents. She goes there under the guise that she's studying medicine, but is actually taking a creative writing program because she's done everything she's wanted, like her parents want her to do. She got the straight A's, she's in the good med program, she's done da-da-da-da-do. But she's always wanted to be a writer, so she decides to go on this like last-ditch effort to do the things that she actually wants to do, and takes a couple of creative writing courses over her summer trip and goes from there. I think these two fit pretty well because, much like the main character from Again But Better, she longs for a different life. She did all the things that she was told she had to do to have like the perfect cushion of a job, to be good at life, but she's still feeling like she's missing. Much like our Harvey, who is like a really good doctor. He works really hard in the things that he does. He's like pretty well loved in the community, but he still looks like he's still searching for something that would have made him happy, which would have been being a pilot. But he decided not to go down the career path. So I think if Harvey had the option to do what the main character in Again But Better did, he'd probably take the chance because he is just looking for something to make him feel whole and satisfied. The next one is one that I want to romance in my next playthrough, and that is Haley. Now, Haley is the spoiled brat of the Stardew Valley. She and Emily come from wealthy parents, and they are now living in this small little quiet town with no malls, no shopping centers, no way for her to just spend money without a care in the world. So she's a little spoiled. Even in her dialogue lines when she first meets you, she's very much like, who are you again? Even after multiple times of talking to her. However, from what I've heard and why I want to romance her, even though she's supposed to be a pain in the ass to romance, is that her character progression is phenomenal in the story. She's in the storyline. Absolutely perfect. She goes from this very spoiled brat who's very self-centered and thinks about herself to being someone who is an asset to the town, who is an asset to your farm, and starts to, actually I think she says that she starts to develop clothes or starts donating her clothes to the poor. But for this book, I ended up choosing Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. That took a second. I just think this both parallels it very well because the main character, I think her name is Sam, from Before I Fall is also very spoiled. She's very much the mean girl of her school. Doesn't really have a character, just wants to fit in and be seen as attractive and sexy and like powerful within this school. But as the book continues and as she repeats the day over and over again, we see her change and become this very selfless person that is admirable by the end of the book, which I think Haley also does in comparison to as she progresses throughout the story, which is why I want to play her, even though she's very difficult to romance, I've heard. But Before I Fall, if you guys haven't been able to tell by me giving Sam's little quick personality description, is a YA contemporary novel following a young girl named Sam as she and her friends go, they're the mean girls, so the popular girls of the school. They're the girls that everyone either fears, adores, or avoids. She wants to have it all. On Valentine's Day, she and her boyfriend plan on having sex, and she plans to lose her virginity. That is until the party where she and her friends get in a car accident, and when she wakes up, she finds that she is living the same day over and over again. And because of this, she has to figure out what she has to do to be able to move forward for the day. Like I said, I think Haley and Sam parallel each other. They're both very shallow girls who are very much stereotypical mean girl, popular girl, spoiled rich brat. And as the story progresses for both storylines, they grow and become better people, and people that are almost admirable by the end of the novel. The next little sweet love interest is Sam. Sam is a very much he's a lost little soul, is what I'm seeing. His dad is off in the war. We get to meet his dad a little bit later on in the storyline, but Sam is very much he's protective of his little brother. He doesn't quite know exactly what he wants out of life. He's very lost. All he knows is that he's here and he's trying to make the most of it. He wants a family. He's a very big family guy. And he just seems to be a very sweet, kind of stupid boy. The book I ended up choosing for this was Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. I think the main character of this book and Sam both have similar traits. They are both kind of both of their parents. He has a bit of a strained relationship with his dad because his dad is always constantly moving them around. And Sam is also without a father and without that kind of parental figure in his life, or not even that, but without him being constant in Sam's life, I can see a lot of tension going on between the two of them, or at least some hesitancy from both ends. And I think at the core, both characters are very, very lost beings. The main character in Heretics Anonymous doesn't know what they want to do with their lives, is very lost, and only sees honestly is doing things to get attention. And Sam in of itself is a very lost young man. He doesn't know what he wants out of his life, doesn't know how to get to what he wants in his life, and it's just a very upsy-daisy kind of situation. Now, Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry is a YA contemporary following, I think his name is Michael, following the main character who moves schools and is ended up in a Catholic school, and he himself is a staunch atheist. Now, the first day of class, he is watching and finds this girl who stands up against the teachings they're currently talking about in class, and is yes, someone else like me. But she wants to become a priest. So now he joins Heretics Anonymous, which is a group of a little after-school club of people who don't exactly believe in what the school is teaching, and they get to learn about acceptance and love and all that fun stuff. This is a very cute little comedy. I like it. But like I said, I think it fits Sam because it does touch upon those things that are a lost souls coming together, very lost and confused young boy who's trying to figure out his way, his path in the world. And I think it just fits. I think it fits. The next one is the artist of the storyline. To me, she screams cottagecore lesbian, but that is Leah. Leah moves to Stardew Valley because she's trying, much like Elliot, she's trying to avoid city life. She wants to be in her art. She wants to be an artist, and her current partner doesn't see that. So she breaks up with them and leaves and moves here to Stardew Valley. Like I said, she's very much an artist. She puts a lot of her focus on her art, a lot of her identity in her art, but at the same time, she also seems very lost. She's not sure exactly what she wants to do with her art, it seems like. And to boot, she's just coming off this really weird relationship, so she's very much in a liminal space with both her art and her place in life. I ended up choosing Bindelpunk Bruja by Desidera Mesa. I think Luna and Leah both have certain aspects about themselves that are the same. Luna absolutely adores plants and wants to become just like her grandma and has her own business that she's trying to flourish and grow. But again, she is struggling to make that work, and she puts very much a lot of her identity into this novel, into that store, into her ideas. And I think that she and Leah are very similar because they're both just trying to figure out their paths in life while also putting their all into the things that they love, which is this, like, for Leah it's her art, for Luna it's her store. Now, Bindelpunk Bruja by Desidera Mesa is a YA historical fantasy following young Luna, who is the host of a speakeasy, and on top of that she's also a bruja, so she goes under the, as she's very white pathing, she goes under the cover of Rose to be able to hold her speakeasy, and she wants to grow it and flourish it as a business, but she also manages to get herself into some sticky business along the way. But I think both of them are very similar in this sense that they're trying to figure out themselves, Luna with her magic in her store, and Leah with her art and her decisions to move to Stardew Valley after living in the city for so long. The next one is Abigail's emo boy to his goth girlfriend, and that is Sebastian. Sebastian is, as I said, Stardew Valley's little emo boy. He likes to hole up in his room. He's very moody and depressed and just sad. He is very much misunderstood by his parents and at some point Abigail as well. He wants to become a programmer, and I think he's designing his own book. He's in a band. He's just all these really interesting and great things, but he's under the constant shadow of his older sister, of his stepsister, of his dad, and he just doesn't. He very much gives me the vibe that he's uncomfortable in his skin because it doesn't feel quite enough yet. I ended up pairing this with a book that came out this year, and that is This One's For You by Kate Sweeney. This is, I think Sid and Sebastian both share similarities, both with the fact that Sid is very pop punk. She's very alternative. She is very intrigued by dead things, which I think Sebastian would quite enjoy. But I also think Sid is living in the shadow of her very successful and overbearing mother and her very successful siblings, and she has this passion for music and audio staging that her parents don't really quite understand and sometimes don't exactly respect, which causes her to act out quite a bit. So I think Sebastian is very similar in that because he works from home, he does all these things and more, but he's not very respected by Abigail and sometimes his parents, and it's very obvious that he feels very upset and very sad by that, especially since he's doing something just as interesting as Maru. But This One's For You is a YA contemporary following Cass and Sid, who are two different perspectives. Cass loves music and has been for a long time now, and he sneaks away most of the time to play at Bart's station, that is until he is discovered. The reason why he sneaks away is because his mother, who was a musician, was killed in a car crash when he was very young, and he and his dad don't talk about her very much, and his dad wants him to stay away from music as much as possible. Whereas Sid is a young girl who's also graduating high school and is very misunderstood by her family. She has this beautiful internship lined up, but her mother's not having it. She thinks that Sid is throwing her life away by doing this internship, and instead wants her to internship at the local hospital. So when they both find out that Cass's mom's old band is doing a reunion and farewell tour, they decide to hop on into a car and follow the band throughout their tour as Cass tries to figure out more about his mom, and Sid tries to figure out how to talk to her mom about her issues and her problems and her struggles with the relationship. I think it works on both ends because both Cass and Sid have hobbies and loves that their parents do not understand and do not want to understand, which puts a strain on that relationship, while the fact that there's a bit of distance from their parents, which I think Sebastian most definitely has between Robin and Demetrius, but Demetrius is just trash. So yes, but I think it just fits really nicely because they both have those interests that don't seem to be well respected, and they're both very outcasts of their own little society, because Sebastian is just a little emo boy. And I'm sure not even Linus, the little homeless man who lives in a tent a few feet from their house, understands him very much either. The next one is Maru. Maru is Sebastian's older stepsister who is a science tech. She's very STEMmy. She has great things lined up for her and also has an overbearing and overprotective dad. But yeah, she is a very sweet girl with a lot of big dreams ahead of her. She volunteers some time at the hospital where Harvey works. She's trying to build her own robot as a project, and it's all just a very sweet and intelligent girl. I struggled with her. Mainly because I don't read a lot of books surrounding STEM. But I ended up choosing The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I just think both Olive and Maru have similarities. I think Maru's also a very introverted kind of gal, just a little bit to herself. Again, unlike Olive, Maru has a relationship with her parents, but I don't think it's on the best terms. They're both STEM ladies, and I feel like they both kind of grow when they fall in love. Like, they both, like, you know, I don't know. I didn't romance Maru. She doesn't interest me very much, I'm not gonna lie, especially after that one comment Demetrius made at her Too Hard event with me that I was like, no, I'm not dealing with no emotional incest here. I think Maru and Olive are very similar, very STEMmy, very intelligent and sweet girls who have a lot on their shoulders, who are putting a lot on their shoulders as well, and also just deserve all the love in the world, and somehow I can't give that to them. Moving on to the second to last love interest, and that is Shane. Shane is depressed. He's depressed and he's using a lot of alcohol to cover things up. There's a lot of other past that I don't know, but he's kind of an asshole. There are a lot of like emotions underneath that surface that, like, if you try to romance him, I'm just gonna judge you for wanting to fix things all the time. And that's coming from someone who has the, oh no, I can fix him personality trait embedded in her genetic system. I just think Shane is a very sad man. I very clearly has a lot on his, dealt with a lot of things before coming to Stardew Valley, and had zero ability to process or discuss any of those things. So instead of like trying to like heal himself and like work on that journey, he tries to numb out with alcohol and other vices. I ended up choosing If We Were Villains for this by ML Rio for this book. I just think that similar to Shane, a lot of the characters within this novel also deal with a lot of like heavier things happening within their lives that cause them to either throw themselves headfirst into like method acting Shakespeare, / also throwing themselves headfirst into numbing themselves out with alcohol and drugs and just kind of throwing themselves off the deep end. Now, this one is an adult dark academia novel following a set of college goers who have been together since freshman year. They're going to this pristine college to study arts and drama and Shakespeare, and they've done so much for this school, for this place, that is until one of their friends ends up dead. And in order to like since no one knows what happened / no one is willing to discuss what happened, Oliver offers himself up, and now 10 years later he's getting out of prison, and we get to see him reenact and tell the exact like details of what happened leading up to that fateful night and what happened leading up to his arrest. I think it fits because these kids are going through so much and they're like internalizing so much that they are acting out and starting to lead to vices that are very damaging to them and their psyche, which I think Shane does a lot as well. He's very much like a lost little lamb who doesn't know a ton of what to do or how to cope with the things he's seen or done, but so he tries to numb it out and just works in a very crappy job with no prospect, and he likes capitalism, which I don't think these kids do, but I don't have a lot of books that enjoy capitalism, so it was a hard one. But I respect anyone who romances Shane. But at some point I have to ask, how bad is your I can fix it gene? Because like even I met Shane and I was like, I don't think I can fix that one. That requires a degree that I do not have. Finally, the last one is sweet little Penny. Now, Penny is this teacher of the school. She very much is like focused on bettering the world through the kids. She wants to teach them all these things. She's a very sweet, very shy and introverted girl. And she lives with her like clearly like low-key abusive and drunk of a mother who hopes for the best for Penny but also very clearly mistreats her. I struggled with this one. I struggled with this one just because I think Penny gives me that vibe where she's like I want more of the world, very similar to Emily and Abigail. She's like, I want more of the world, which is also very bookish, and I think she's also low-key kind of content in just like allowing that like wanting to remain within the pages of a novel. So I ended up choosing The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern with this one. I think both these books, the book and the character itself, are kind of similar in the sense that The Starless Sea is very romantic. It romanticizes the concept of novels, of reading, that very much homage to the love of reading and all that fun stuff. And it creates an adventure out of it that I think only like a reader who's like very like deep into like who can like get lost in a novel like that will enjoy. And I think Penny is very similar to that. Like, she wants the adventure, she wants the romance, she wants the pizzazz, but she loves it within the confines of a novel and to be able to escape to that. And I think The Starless Sea's like plot and overall way it was written does that just fine. And I think those two characters, like the book and the Stardew Valley character, come really nicely together. Now, The Starless Sea is an adult contemporary fantasy following young Zachariah as he's on the cusp of ending his thesis. That is, until he finds a secret society that kind of makes him wonder exactly what's happening in this world and his place in it. As I said, it's an homage to the love of books and the love of reading. So I think that, like I said, Zachary and Penn are very, very similar in that aspect. And I just think that Penny, while she yearns for more, is also very content in the life that she has and is comfortable to contain that yearning within the confines of a novel where she can get lost and just come back to reality and she doesn't tire of it. Oh, but that is it for this video. This is a long ass video, y'all. And to boot, I am still overheating. I think I should just take a shower and get out of like a thick sweater. But if you guys want me to do more of these videos, I try to do them every now and again. But if you have any ideas for what you want me to do these kinds of videos for, let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, hope you guys are staying safe, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. Bye.